Hi, this is John Firth, and this is our seventh installment, I believe, for the winter-spring series of Firth and Friends. I'm here with my good friend Alan Byrne and colleague. We started Executives Over 50 about 2 years ago to come out of a working group that we had started several years earlier based on a Stanford course called Positive Intelligence. We found it so useful, and all the guys who sort of first joined us were over 50 or even over 60 and former executives, and therefore we open this up to others. So today is a broadcast about executives over 50, and in particular about what we're seeing in the marketplace for talent. There's been quite a shift in the last 6 months. We had talked a lot about ageism in a negative way in the preceding years, but right now it appears that with the changes going on in Washington and the uncertainty that older executives and former executives are feeling, they're getting off their duffs and they're actually getting stuff done. And they're discovering what we have known for a while, that there is an active market for talent, former executives, senior executives, based more on their experience and wisdom and less on their ability, quote unquote, to get things done. And so Alan, I'm going to let him introduce himself. He is a former HR executive for private equity-owned companies, and he's been at Lee Hecht Harrison for the last year and a half, 2 years. So he's witnessing firsthand what does it mean for former executives to try and find a job and or start a new career. So Alan, please introduce yourself.
Great.
Kick off the topic. Our phones are ringing. We need to turn those off.
Good morning. I'm Alan Byrne. I am a semi-retired senior HR executive. Currently in my work life today, I work with a company called Lee Hecht Harrison, and I work with people that have been laid off in this in the multitude of people that are now out of work, but their companies have given them a benefit that allows them to work with us, and we help them get back to work. And that can be people that have been in a certain job for 35 years or somebody who's been in a job for 2 years. And we work and help develop their skills, their resume, interviewing skills, anything that is that they feel like they need to go out and start looking for a job, even down to searching on the internet or using LinkedIn, all kinds of things. And what we're finding out is that the reason I got involved with John is that I felt like I was a victim to ageism when I left my job and I started looking at some other jobs. And I just felt like I was being judged for things that I had done in my career that maybe had been 10 or 15 years before. And so I talked to John and I said, I feel like people really are experiencing this ageism thing. And John said, yeah, I'm hearing a lot about it too. So, we kicked this off. We look at today in 2025, and what I'm noticing, let's say 2024, 25, is that, part of the training process that I do with people is, if you didn't go back to work, what would you do? A lot of people say, I wish I didn't have to work anymore. I think that's a normal human thing after you've been in the workforce for 30 or 40 years. And it's kind of like, could I give it up? Well, I don't want to give up working, but I'd love to give up what I'm doing. So we work and talk about where where do they see themselves? And, and to this day, I've seen people start their own businesses where they're handy in a workshop, and now they realize that they can make money, fixing things, doing things, designing things. I've had a couple of women who have started their own podcasts, and so they're doing a monthly podcast on women's issues. I've seen many people just go into their own LLC for different consulting. I've seen people join consulting firms. And, when I talk with them, they go, I think a lot of this has empowered me to do my own thing now. I realize that I can take everything I've learned over the years and put that into myself and my own business and make money. So, there's a shift in people's attitude only because I think one is that they're not waiting around for the world to change. They're saying, hey, I got to grab the gusto myself and really hit it. And so, so it is, it is good. I'm not saying that people don't come out and they're not depressed and they're not upset. It's the usual, human trigger for people when they lose their jobs. But now I think people are coming out and they're saying, hey, now's a good time for me to start this business that I've been working on the side. So now it doesn't have to be on the side. Now it can come to the forefront and I can start to advertise myself. And, people are a lot happier. So I'm seeing a lot more of that. It's a good thing to see.
And I would only say our experience of executives over 50 now, about our second year, is everybody's gone through our program, and it is a group experience for the most part with optional coaching on the side. By the way, the group is free right now. We're in a growth phase, and we don't want to present any thresholds to people who may feel like they're financially in a precarious situation, because we're really there to help. There's really everybody who's come through the group has gotten their third act together. We call it the third act. But essentially, they've either gotten that job that they really, really wanted. We had one woman who worked for a year because she knew exactly what she wanted. She even refused to other offers, late 50s. But we've had people who thought they'd never be hired again for a variety of reasons. Some of them valid, some of them just more in their head than anything. And we've had people who started off on entrepreneurial careers, and every single one of them have created their third act. And they're, if not happier, they're certainly relieved to realize that on the other side of corporate life, there is a whole new life to be had. I wanted to add to this also is I'm essentially doing more and more the older I get what I want to do. A lot of it doesn't make money. In fact, some of it costs money. But what I'm stumbling upon over and over again is programs that are designed for over 62 or over 65 usually, that really take a lot of financial pressure off me. Medicare, starting with Medicare, but also mortgage programs to refinance or to buy a new house. I'm thinking moving, where your retirement savings count, for example, as income. So it changes the whole look of your financials when it comes to approach a lender and things like that. So I would say that's one of the, two factors, I think, or three factors I've mentioned. One is, DC, we danced around it, but let's face it, in the confusion of DC, I know I went through a bit of a nightmare last week and the beginning of this week, and a whole bunch of other reasons why that was financially, not knowing if I'd even get my Social Security payment, which I did get, but also just recognizing there is help out there if you're totally freaking out about money, and that's keeping you from really hitting the ground running and doing something proactive. Then realize you need to be sleuthing a little bit about what's available, because there's a lot available. And in fact, we talk about it, and I posted in our community chat room for executives over 50. And then the third one is your own self, yourself. There's a lot of mind trash around getting older that you have to deal with. But Alan, why don't you talk a little bit about your own experience in your transition?
Yeah, well, so sorry for my hoarse voice, but it just happens to me naturally.
Being over 64.
One of the things that I wanted to add, John, about executives over 50,
as we both take
anybody who's on here today, where they know of somebody who's in the market looking or thinking about looking, tell them about our group, share our group with them, because the group gets together and it's this very non-judgmental group of adult, professionals, some working, some not working. And you can bring your life into the group and talk to the group about what's going on. And what the group does is they give you ideas. They tell you what they think, and people leave going, I didn't think of even 5 of those things, for myself. And now I want to come back to the group and keep telling you guys how I'm doing. And so eventually, the group grows. And I really think that people should really reach out to their friends or yourself and come join, come look in. like John said, it's free to start, and there's no hidden agendas. So we don't just get you in and then somewhere in the hour we go, okay, so now let's talk about cost. So we don't do that. We have some professional things that are available to you that have a cost effect, but that's completely separate. But look around, share this with people. This is a great group for people to come to. And touch base with John. He's the clearing guard for people to join the group. And I'm actually happy to talk to somebody, but I would still have you talk with John first, because he's kind of he's our kingpin. So, but when it comes to my professional life, I was really kind of done. Wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I know that I love working with people. I was happy I got a call out of the blue from a friend of mine who was a CFO for Lee Heck Harrison. And he said, hey, here's the program that we're doing. We are so overwhelmed with the number of people coming through. Would you be interested in being a consultant? And I said, I would, but only part-time. And that as long as I thought I could add value. And then when I realized what I've been doing for 40 years and working with people and developing people to take on what's next in their life, I've been doing this for almost 2 years now. And just incredible results. Really happy with the work that I'm doing and how I'm feeling with watching these people develop themselves, because they get on with me every week and a half, and we do calls on Zoom, and they talk about what they're working on and what results that they've had. And then it's, in a way, it's a little bit sad, because then people come and say, I got a job, I got an offer, and it's like, oh. And they go, oh, I'm not going to see you anymore. And I'm like, well, I'm always available for a call. You can always call me and say hello. I said, now you're treating me like I'm your grandparent, so, but it's like, it's a very exciting opportunity. I work with some great other consultants. They're very sharp. Everybody knows they really are there to help people and take care of people. So I would come, at least for the executives over 50, I'm usually there. You can always talk to me, if you're in career transition, and I'm happy to talk to you about that.
Yeah, so, and here's my Calendly link, by the way. If you want to make an appointment just to talk about what we do a little bit further, it's in the comments box. By the way, we have a comment from Maya Simic where she says, synergy, very interesting word. I'd love to hear more about it. You could, or maybe you can, Maya is somebody I assume.
No.
Oh, goodness. I don't think I know Maya. It's awesome. Hi. But as I said, I just posted went onto Facebook and YouTube. I'll show it again, but you should be able to find it. Those of you who are online right now should be able to find the link in the comments box. And by the way, we are looking for people to comment or to ask questions. So let's talk a little bit about how things have shifted, because this is our third ageism, and it's the most optimistic by a long shot. And you told me some of the factors. I've mentioned a couple: uncertainty politically and economically, head trash, our own finances, and so forth. What are some of the other things that you're seeing that are changing how people's attitudes and motivation are improving?
Well, I think people are coming out of their workplaces when they're laid off, and they're a little bit more prepared for, I saw it coming. Like when it first hit, it was like, I didn't see this coming. But then they hadn't been laid off yet, and they just kept looking around, and they could see the wave, and they could see how people being touched on the shoulder and invited into a room. And they could see people packing up their boxes, and they were told not to talk to them. And we've all heard terrible stories. Everybody has a terrible story to tell. But what's happening is people are, I think, sitting back and they're thinking, while I've got the time, let me look at my life. What do I want to do? Who am I? They're talking to their kids. Their kids are grown. They put them through college. And, I say to them, why, your kids have opinions. Talk to them, see what they think you should be doing. and people come back with just incredible ideas about, I really want to look into writing a children's book. I really want to look into having a dog walking business. I want to, things that they know that as they build up their income on a monthly basis based on what they've got today, that they can live a nice life and they can go and they can enjoy things and they can still have the summer vacations. They can still spend time with their families and enjoy.
You have more than just summer vacation. Sometimes you can take a vacation anytime you want because you've made yourself independent.
I mean, it's so, it's nice that people are self-generating. They're taking their maturity of experience and they're saying, who am I? What am I? And how do I take that out into the world? And I think that's making people stronger. What we try to do here is not get into the political thing because it's not, doesn't belong. We don't want it in our space.
No.
But even though it interferes with things, people are jumping beyond that, saying, I can make my life work, with everything I've got going now.
Yeah.
That's the positive thing. And, everybody gets stuck in their life. And what's happening now is there are groups like our group, executives over 50. There's different tools to help you bounce back and instead really live your life. And that's the most important thing. That's what we want for people. That's why we started this. John has a heavier hand in probably covering the costs than I certainly do. But it's because he believes in it. And I believe in it too. We've been doing this now for quite a while. And I think we're going to continue to do it. And it's like, we're not trying to be The View. We're not trying to have a TV show, but we will. If you want us to, we will. If we have enough come, you must join. And, we're not, you just get to work with a great group of people. So, go ahead.
And one thing, I would add, I'm sorry, I'll let you finish, and then I want to add one or two things.
No, go ahead, John. I'm good.
I was going to say that it feels a little bit like a support group. It does not feel like group therapy because there's some hardcore action steps that people commit themselves to. We do have a methodology. It's called Career Compass. Comes from the other founder, Jonathan Phillips, which is a very clear process that everybody goes through, whether you're 18 or 80, and you want to either find a career or find a business that you want to run. And they're very clear steps. And the bottom line is you have to be out there networking. When you hit a certain age and experience, you have a great network. And it's amazing to me how quickly people dismiss the former network. And there's, again, a lot of head trash there. Everything from, I'm not feeling very successful or confident right now. I don't want to show up in places where I can't feel my best. Well, we got to get you over that. You are, at the peak of your performance. By the way, performance increases steadily until you're about 80. So I'm actually performing better, meaning I'm more productive, meaning higher quality, and I can feel it. Now, it's not always easy, but I know what performance is. And as I get older, I'm amazed at what I'm learning even at 65. So, we start with making sure that the head trash is gone. Head trash about being older, head trash about the way the world you think it is, how you're being viewed, because the world is not a bad place. The world is actually trying to help us. And once you get past that, then it really is a question of getting your LinkedIn profile, your resume, all that sort of stuff, consistent with that of an elder, I say elder, not elderly, of an elder who's wise and has experience and wants to be hired for that and should be hired for that. So we make sure that lines up. And then we really just check up that you're doing what you have to do. You're talking to people, you're networking, your pitch, quote unquote, is correct. You're saying the right things, and they don't lose faith. And I would say those are the main things we bring is it does work. And we've seen people turn their whole professional life and personal life sometimes too around in 3 months, but sometimes it takes a year. Depends on a whole bunch of factors. But we are in demand out there. And the good news is the message is getting out there, is that there is life after 50, there's life after 60, after 70. And it's a pretty damn good life when you think about how essentially you get to call the shots at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think The one thing I want to say about the group is that for those of you that um, have like a mistrust about things like this, just come and sit and listen. Just introduce yourself and just say, I'm going to be quiet. And we're good about that. You know, if you want to listen in and see how we work and how we work together. But, you know, people are going to be curious about you. So be prepared that they might ask you what your background is and what you do. They're just trying to invite you in and have you feel comfortable. But it's okay to be suspicious and come in and join us. It's, you know, I think you'd be surprised and really happy with the results.
Yeah, and I would say a word about that. A lot of people are naturally cautious. I mean, we are talking about people's lives. By the way, I'm trying to get my website, the website page address as well. It's not going that well. I keep going to Instagram. But if you Google executives over 50 and it's connected to my website, if you want to read more about it, I don't know if you can find it, but somehow I keep going to my Instagram here. Let's talk about some of the things we've seen. We've seen people who've come in who are convinced their career is over. We had a gentleman who sued his other firm correctly for discrimination, being a white male. He actually was discriminated against actively. He won that lawsuit, but then he wasn't getting interviews. And we helped him understand that he should just get that out of his head. That really means nothing except for what the meaning is that you're putting on it. Meaning you're walking to meetings and it's already almost being trumpeted that you feel like you're not going to get hired because of this problem. The minute he got over that hump and realized it was just probably something he may, in hindsight, maybe not have done, but he got himself an amazing job 3 months later. As far as I know, he's still in the job, very high-powered firm, consulting, and it proved to him that it had nothing to do with the process. At some point, he got asked, he answered that question very matter-of-factly, what happened. He's a very matter-of-fact, very down-to-earth guy, and it worked. Another guy, also, he left his firm. He was the highest-paid consultant, senior executive or senior partner. He was convinced that, you know, that's going to be really hard trudge for him. Again, within 3 or 4 months, he had his job. Another woman started out as, she was always entrepreneurial, and she decided this time she was going to go out as a consultant. She's a bang-up consultant. She's an amazing consultant. She just doesn't believe it. I tell you, having been a consultant for 25 years, she is an awesome consultant, very talented, very smart, very politically savvy. So that's some of the things that we work with people, is we make them regain their confidence and recognize that they still have a lot of value, if not more value. And I think that's one of the messages today, is that we can take back, we should be in control of our lives just as much as we were in our 30s and 40s when we were building a career. We have nothing to be ashamed of. We have absolutely nothing that we've done wrong. We've usually learned from it. Employers, even if you go out as a contractor, employers are those who hire contractors. If you're open and honest about what you've learned, because you've learned probably the hardest from the difficult times, that in my case, I know I caused 2 or 3 of the really difficult times in my life, but I learned from them and I take responsibility for it. That all resonates amazingly with either employers and sometimes with clients. I'm very open with my coaching clients because I think I owe it to them. If I expect them to be open and honest with me, then I have to be open and honest and authentic. So it really starts with the mindset.
I mean, it's, you know, I will say the first gentleman John was talking about, when things started to work for him, there was like a physical appearance change in this guy. Like, it looked like he'd lost 30 pounds. He was smiling.
Yeah.
I was like, who is that? You know, and and it's like, it is possible he learned how to transform his own life. You know, we were there and we were partners with him, but he did it. You know, he made it work. So that's where this really comes in handy. And, you know, I have to say for myself, when I first left the private equity world, when I looked back, I realized like that I was working for one of the top people there. And they had to have been, I hate to say this, but the worst manager I have ever experienced in my life. I mean, horrible. But I put up with it, and I put up with it now. And then when I was gone, I'm like, why did I put up with that crap?
Right.
You know, and And so now I don't have to. I'm my own manager, and I take care of things myself, and I get along just fine. And, when all this happened, I was single, one income. And, still today it's myself, my dog. We just moved into a brand new house, and, we're doing fine. And, this is why we come on and we do this kind of thing, because nobody needs to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and try and look half decent and then get on it, something that being, the filmed that other people can watch. It comes out of the dedication, I think, that we have to the working people out there. And I guess I'm blowing out air here, but, just wanting to say, come one, come all, we're excited about the future.
And Alan has offered great advice to some of the members. And it's definitely a comforting spirit. And he's one of the few people in the world who will call me out and just tell me, John, things like, you need to ask for help. So he's a great addition to the group that we have of coaches. And I want to go back to the title of this: Former Executives Take Back Control of Their Lives. It really is going back into the seat of control. I know I tend to less release control sometimes, but Alan actually called me out on that a couple of days ago. There are times when we, even as senior executives, have to take back control, and control's become this bad word, because it sounds dictatorial, and in an age where that seems to be all we're talking about. But we have every right to call it as we see it, and to ask for favors, to ask for help, and take control and tell people really the way it is. I mean, in fact, we do get hired to tell people what the reality is because we've lived through it. But it is about just saying, nobody else is going to do this for me. I'm going to have to do it, just like Alan said. And by the way, a little story about the tariff situation. So the tariffs came through a little over a week ago, Wednesday last week. And I have at least 2 clients that are very dependent on imports. Neither of them freaked out at all. In fact, they started preparing themselves with ideas of reaching out to their suppliers, saying, look, maybe there's something we can do. This question of how you handle some of the middlemen that added up some of the costs. And then suddenly Trump is backstepping, except for China. Now, China is a very important manufacturer, and certainly that doesn't make the situation it doesn't take care of it. But these things can change. And I think one of the things we have to realize as senior executives, and we should have learned it by now, is you don't depend on Washington for anything, for any kind of, and certainly not these days, for some sort of clarity, for some strategy, some direction. All the wonderful things that we learned in corporate life don't really apply at Washington. I've lived twice in Washington, worked twice in Washington, not for the government, but for Discovery and then for a consulting company. And I think all of us have to learn to rid our mind, not just of our own beliefs and head trash, but the head trash that comes out of YouTube and the TV, because that does not help situations. And I still get caught up sometimes in the whirlwind, and then my brain starts whirring, and I forget my own words. But we have no choice, is to get out there. And I really think the answer is get out there. Get out there and talk to people. Enjoy yourself in the networking, but also remember that your networking has a purpose. It's not just to say hi and have a profession. It's what people call professional visitors. People who look great at networking, but they forget the ask. You've always got to ask for something if you're really intent on not turning your life around, but having a life that you love after you've either left post-corporate life or you're an older executive. Just have the ask, have the wonderful conversation, make sure the conversation goes in the right directions for a professional conversation, even if it is with friends. And don't forget to make the ask. Can you help me? Do you know someone? Do you have any ideas for me of where I can go? Remember, I always say the old adage is ask for money and you get advice, but ask for advice and you get money. So ask for advice. There's no harm in a 65-year-old asking advice. I mean, I'm learning stuff that I wish I had 30 years ago. It would have helped me a lot. Alan?
People out in the work world that I'm noticing when I get the feedback from my clients is that they are saying people that are still working are stepping up and offering help. They're helping, to help their job search. Their eyes and ears open. They want copies of their resumes. They want to do whatever they can, because what they've realized is they've seen so many people laid off that they're like, well, my time could come too. So I need to help other people and give back, because my big thing is, I want to know that I am doing something. And that's how people want, they want to feel like they're helping out. So, I think the world is changing, maybe not certain things, but when it comes to the attitude of the human being, I think there's been a lot of change. So I think that's exciting, and a real reason to listen to us for a couple hours.
Right. Or listen to other members of the group. By the way, there is a free consultation that I offer everybody who's interested, who wants to first just get to know it. This is how you book it. Should be in the comment box, I hope. But I'll keep this up actually for the rest of the couple minutes we have. One thing we have to remember also is that there are certain things we do have to do to, I hate to say it like this, I'm thinking there may be a better way, to keep the youth going, the young part of us going. One is we should really stay up on technology. I'm amazed at what's coming out in AI, absolutely floored. And I feel like I'm only scratching the surface of ChatGPT. And in fact, my best performing post on LinkedIn was about 2 weeks ago. And I wrote it with a great amount of help from ChatGPT, first time really. And obviously, first of all, it cut the time down from I don't know how many hours to just maybe 2 or 3 to write the article. But so AI is something everybody should be learning about, whether you're 7, 17, or 70. It is the wave of the future. The other thing is do take care of yourself. Don't forget that health is our greatest asset. I've had a terrible year health-wise. I just had 4 teeth extracted, one of which were basically disintegrated. I did not realize how much the pain was hindering me from being myself, being a high performer and going out there and do things. I would wake up with headaches. I did not realize it. The minute I came home and didn't feel that pain, there is a hole there, but I'll probably get implants. The pain is gone. And I really feel like I'm my old self again. So take care of your health. Absolutely take care of health. Take care of how you look. Make sure that you're well groomed when you go out, especially for those quasi interviews and networking. Those are all little things that you don't want to appear to be acting old, like, oh, I don't know this, I haven't done that, or I look old, or I feel old. That just perpetuates a myth about who we are. So there is a certain amount of self-care. Energy, make sure your energy's up. Whatever you have to do, working out is a great way. Eating properly. The mindset, as Alan said, this one client, when he finally got it, that this thing that had happened before had no meaning anymore, he brightened up. And nobody wants to see a depressed or crotchety old man. They want to see someone who's energized, excited, optimistic. So, Alan, any parting comments from your side?
No, I think what you said, John, is so true. I mean, it really is, about taking care of yourself and keeping your strength. When I work with people, I tell them 3 things. If they want to work with me, they have to eat, they have to sleep, and they have to have some fun. Whatever that may be for somebody, they got to have some fun and just laugh, because exercising your mouth and your brain with laughter is a very healthy thing to do.
Absolutely.
So, that's one of the things that we do with our group. There's always laughter. We're always, giving somebody a hard time or teasing somebody, but people, they leave empowered, and that's the most important thing. Right. So, with that, I hope that we hear from people today, that people touch base with us and are interested in what we're doing.
Yes. And I try to figure out on LinkedIn, we don't know who attends this, but I do find people follow up and so forth. So I will also be actively looking for people who might actually benefit from being with us. And I would like to close this by going back to the first thing I said is This was an evolution out of a program designed at Stanford Business School called positive intelligence. So there is science behind this. Stay positive. Do not start judging yourself. Do not go negative on yourself, because that takes you to the amygdala, and all the amygdala is there for. It's our primitive survival instinct, is fight or flight, neither of which are useful or appropriate in the situations that we find ourselves in, especially as we get older in modern society. So stay positive. Don't get scared. Don't feel like you're being unsuccessful or things are out of control. Those were all judging negative thoughts. And I'm not saying be silly and just ignore the bad stuff, but be reality based. But come back to positive and don't judge yourself or others during this sometimes difficult process. So thank you, Alan. There is a video recording that's going to be available to those who are just catching part of this or want to see, or for those of you who missed this and you're seeing the video. And we look forward to hearing from you and seeing you at our next LinkedIn Live. Bye.